What you're looking at is really something which is, I think the proper English word is incredulous. What you're looking at is a desperate attempt of the Satan to stop Trump. And it's astounding to what extent he's trying to do that. Because a second term of Trump will destroy the Satan. And that is why it's because we see what is Trump doing so far. I mean, we see that Yishmael, the whole what's called klipa of Yishmael is ending. And slowly, one after the other, is going to either ally or wants to ally itself with Israel. You see, which of course is exactly what the Satan doesn't want. And not only that, but when Trump becomes the president for a second term, then he will really affect terribly the United States based on what the Satan wants. So it's amazing to watch to what lengths the Satan will go to stop him. And that's really what you're seeing. And the interesting thing about it is, how, this whole concept of the elections, the accepting ballots, which are mail-in ballots, opens up the whole election for incredible fraud. And that's really what you're seeing, is the fraud of what's happening now. In fact, one of the things which I heard is, for instance, Wisconsin, which they say went for Biden, right? But the amazing thing is that there's only, I think, 3.1 million registered voters in Wisconsin. Yet the amount of ballots that were cast was like 3.2 million. So there are more ballots cast in Wisconsin than there are people who are even registered. So obviously something is very wrong here, you see, because there are ballots that don't belong to be ballots. They should not be legally accepted. And it's not only true of Wisconsin, but I think it's also true of Michigan and other states, you see. So what is happening is that clearly they are trying to, the Democrats or the radical left, they're trying to deny Trump another term. And that's really, behind it all, of course, is the Satan, of course, like I said, who's trying to deny all of it to Trump. And hopefully, of course, they won't succeed. Because what's interesting is that we see that God protects Trump. He made him president in 2016, which was an open miracle. He protected him against the entire Russian collusion hoax, against this guy, Bob, Mueller. Then he protected him against the impeachment. And then there's so many other things that we see God protects Trump because the Satan is trying to destroy him. This is nothing more than another attempt of the Satan to destroy Trump, because the second term of Trump will be much worse for the Satan than the first term. And in the second term, he's really going to go forward in terms of allowing the Jewish people, Eretz Israel, to get back the whole of the land of Israel to the Jewish people, and of course to ally the Arabs with Israel. And there are so many things that will change as a result of that. So we are right now looking at an incredible attempt of the Satan through the Democratic Party to deny Trump a second term. But we have not seen, obviously, the end. And hopefully what will happen is when it does get to the Supreme Court, then, of course, they will side with Trump, and he will be elected for a second term. And in that second term, I think what Trump is going to do is really go after all these people, all those people that try to destroy him, you see, after Biden and his corrupt son that have committed basically treason because they sold out to China and China is an enemy of America. And that's basically, it may not be legally treason, but it's certainly treasonous, you see. But it's not only these people. He's going to fire, the head of the FBI, Christopher Wray. He's going to do a lot of things and really go after all those people that try to create a hoax against him with the FISA court. And I think he's going to be unleashed in the second term and really clean the swamp. That's what's going to happen in the second term. And as a result of that, the Satan obviously is going absolutely crazy to deny him the presidency. So we really, in many ways, have to have bitachon. We have to, obviously, God is in charge and not the Sultan. And we have to, sit back and watch as God will come to the defense of Trump. Because I don't believe that the Biden will be the president of the United States. It makes absolutely no sense, and it is contrary, as far as I see, to the entire divine plan. Because if you think about it, there are so many things that Biden will do. Because Biden will not only, first of all, the main thing is, of course, is that Biden is, of course, he's demented. He has dementia, which gets worse by the day. So how can he be the president? So therefore, he obviously cannot lead America. So the ones who will lead America is not him, it's the radical left behind him. The whole concept of Bernie Sanders and AOC, all of these people, and this Ilhan Omar, and so on. So therefore, they will lead him, and he will then make terrible decrees and collapse the United States' economy with his crazy budget. He's going to defund the police. He's going to take away cash bail, which means that there will be a tremendous amount of criminals let out into the street, you see. He's going to allow illegal immigrants free education and free health care, and he's going to allow them to enter the United States, and then he's going to impose again, bring back all the regulations. I mean, without going through the whole list, he's going to destroy the United States. And of course, he's going to raise tax tremendously in order to come up with his crazy Green Deal. So therefore, does it make sense that God wants to destroy the United States, especially in terms of what Trump has been doing for the Jewish people? Of course not. It makes no sense. And what Biden would do is not just destroy the United States and allow crime, lawless, no law and order, tremendous amount of crime, but Biden also, we know, would destroy the world. The whole world would be destroyed because the United States is the economic engine of the entire world. And if they collapse, everybody collapses with them. So certainly it makes no sense that God wants the whole world to collapse. Besides all of this, of course, we know there'll be a tremendous rise in anti-Semitism because the radical left hates the Jews. So you're going to see a tremendous rise with hatred of the Jewish people in America, not only elsewhere. So that will also happen, you see. And besides that, they, of course, are tremendously anti-Israel. So they're going to impose real tremendous, terrible conditions that Israel has to have a two-state solution, and that's the only way they will accept giving any, sponsorship or funds or trade with Israel. So that will be terrible for Israel, you see. And besides, we know that Biden will again allow Iran, he will again enter into an agreement with Iran, and right now they are collapsing. And when he enters that agreement, of course, then Iran will rise. Not only Iran, but you'll have communist China, where Biden anyway is beholden to China because he's been bribed by China. So China will grow tremendously in power, you see. Because in many ways, the United States is the policeman of the entire world. There's a great deal of evil that would be done if the U.S. was not there. Then all these people, criminals, and really terrible, bad people, evil people, would grow and proliferate throughout if the United States wasn't there to prevent that. So the United States prevents a great deal of evil that can be done in the world, you see. And when Biden is there, all of that will happen. Because Biden himself is an incredible crook. So the question that we ask ourselves, is this what God wants? To destroy the United States, collapse the world, and allow the enormous amount of evil, you see, to grow? Nope, makes no sense at all, you see. And that, in many ways, is what's happening, you see. And like I say, and I'm not even talking about the U.S. economy, where the economy itself will collapse. And besides, there'll be a lockdown. I mean, Biden's an idiot. He'll lock down the entire United States, for weeks and weeks, and he'll really destroy the economy, you see. So that's really what you're seeing. You're seeing a tremendous attempt by the Satan to allow or to convince people to deny Trump a second term. Because Trump, as the Tov Sheba Esav, as the good part of Esav, is really one of the worst things that the Satan can do. So what you really have to do is sit back and watch how it looks like Biden will win, and really sit back and watch and see, the great miracle that God will pull off for Trump, and also, of course, for the Jews and the whole agenda, of the messianic, the redemption process. So that's in many ways what seems to be happening now. I mean, the truth is, we could have anticipated this, that the Satan will stop at anything. He'll stop at nothing to destroy Trump. Because Trump's second term will be much worse for the Satan than his first Trump. And look how many times he tried to stop Trump, as I said, every which way. And his, of course, agents, his shlichim, are the radical left. And look how many different ways he tried to stop Trump. So this really is, if you think about it, really to be expected. And not to be surprised at what is happening. So that's what you really have to do, is sit back and watch how God will take over and stop the whole thing from happening. Anyway, that's my take. What is interesting also is that today is, or was, because it's a little after that, Yud Zayin Cheshvan, Shiva also in Cheshvan, and the Torah, it's one of the few dates in the whole Torah, that was the day of the Mabul, today. And the Mabul, of course, which is the 17th day of Cheshvan, was the destruction of the entire world. The whole concept of Midas Hadin, Midat Hadin, the attribute of judgment, comes upon the world, you see. And I believe the problem here is, what gives the Satan such koyach, such ability and power to create such havoc, you see, with those people that want to help the Jewish people. And the problem is that there's a tremendous amount of corruption, immorality in America, you see. And therefore, in many ways, America is guilty of those sins, you see. And as a result of that, the Satan has the ability to destroy America. That's part of the armaments that he has, you see. And of course, today is the day of the Midas Hadin, the attribute of justice, and therefore we see that Because if God brings Biden on America, in effect, he will destroy America. And that obviously is an incredible judgment against America. And like I mentioned, it's a judgment against the entire world. And today, like I said, is the day of the Mabul, where the entire world was destroyed. You see. And it's going to be very bad. So we have to sit back and watch and, of course, hope that the divine plan will overcome any attempt to get rid of Trump. It's a very important idea. Okay, that's what I have to say about what's going on now and so on. Now, speaking about the Mabul and the Yud Zion, last week I spoke about Yud Aleph Cheshvan, which of course is the yahrtzeit of Rachel Imeinu. And I wanted to speak a little about who is Rachel Imeinu and what is her mission and why is that her mission. So I thought that would be important and very instructive. A lot of it starts with the whole concept of Yaakov and Esav. You see, Avraham Avinu, he exemplified the whole concept of chesed that we know. Yitzchak exemplified the whole concept of what's called gevura, which is strength. So the midah of the sphere, actually, of gevura, was represented in many ways by Yitzchak. Now, there is another sphere, midah, called Tiferes. Tiferes means beauty. And what Tiferes is, it is a balance between chesed and gvura. It's a middle. You have chesed on the right, you have gvura on the left, and in the middle, you have this like balancing of Tiferes, which is chesed on the right side of Tiferes, gvura on the left side of Tiferes. You see? Now, since Tiferes is a middle midah, middle sphere, so in effect, Tiferes really has a right side, like I said, and a left side. So therefore, the third sphere, which is Tiferes, was represented by two of us, because there are really four of us, not three. There's Avram, Chesed, there's Yitzchak, which is Gvura, and there's Yaakov, which is Tiferes, which we know. But since Tiferes is a midah or a sphere, that is a middle one, then it itself has a right and a left. So the right side of Tiferes is Yaakov Avinu, and the left side of Tiferes is Esav. Most people do not realize that Esav is an Av. He was a patriarch, and both of them did both of their jobs when they were born was to be able to bring a tikkun, a rectification to the creation. But they have really two different jobs, you see. Yaakov Avinu's job, the right side of Tiferes, you see, is the concept of what's called hispashtus kedusha. Hispashtus kedusha, to increase tremendously holiness. And that's why Yaakov Avinu sat in his tent. He's a yeshiva holim, as the Torah says, because his job was to bring down holiness in the form of learning. However, Esav's job, which is the left side of Tiferes, his job, right, is called kafiyas hora, to subdue evil. So Yaakov's job is the concept of holiness, to bring it down, to increase the amount of holiness in the world. Esav's job was to subdue and destroy the Satan, you see. And the way Esav would do that is if he would be righteous, then the Satan would be destroyed. And that's really why, you see. So Esav's job is called, that's why Yaakov is referred to as Yeshiv Yeholim, a dweller in tents, which means that Yaakov Avinu used to dwell in tents. He didn't go out, really, and what that means is that he used to learn Torah. He dwelt in the tents, and his job was to learn Torah. And Esav's job was an ish sodeh, was a man of the field. What does that mean? That his job was really to go out into the world and to subdue the world by remaining a tzaddik, a righteous person, you see. So they really had two jobs, both in the middle, on the right and the left side of Tiferes. So that's who Yaakov and Esav were. And that's why they were twins. They were twins because they were both avot. They were both avos, you see. And as such, they were twins. And they were twins, like I said, because they both represented the middle sphere, which is called Tiferes. That was, therefore, the concept of Yaakov and Esav. So when you think about that, there were really four avos. One was Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Esav. Now, the problem was, of course, Esav had his job. But what happened was, Esav, had he been a tzaddik, which he could have become, then he would have subdued the Satan. In fact, he would have annihilated the Satan. Because in order for Esav to destroy the Satan, he was connected to the Satan. He's connected to the Shurish, to the root of evil, so that when he does the job of what he has to do, then evil would be destroyed. And that's why he was connected to the Satan. The problem with Esav was, instead of remaining righteous and destroying the Satan, to which he was connected to, he joined the Satan. He became a Rasha, you see. And as a result of that, Esav, who was an Av, has now become a tremendous agent of the Satan. So Esav, in many ways, is the story of an Av that became evil, that became a Rasha, which of course is astounding, because the Avos was supposed to bring a tikkun to the creation and not fail. But Esav is the story of an Av that failed to do his job. So what does God do? Because what you really need four of us, like I said, representing Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes. And Tiferes is represented by Yaakov and Esav. So therefore, that was Esav's job. But that is a job that has to be accomplished, you see. So even if Esav fails, somebody has to do it instead of Esav. Because that is a very important part of the tikkun, you see. So therefore, if Esav fails, and like I said, to fail to do what? To subdue and destroy the Satan by remaining righteous, then somebody else has to do his job. Now, the way Esav would do it, of course, is that he would be an ish sodeh, a man of the field. And therefore what he would do is go out and, just stay, in many ways, stay among people. But he would remain a tzaddik, righteous. And therefore, he would be able to impoverish the Satan from what the Satan took in the Kedusha. You see, that the Satan took the what's called the sparks of holiness from the 2,000 years, from Adam until Avram Avinu. And Esav, by remaining a tzaddik, could have taken back all the sparks of holiness from the Satan, and then the Satan himself would be tremendously subdued. So the question is, who's going to do that if Esav becomes a Rasha? And the answer to that is, what God did was an incredible thing. He took Yaakov Avinu, who was on the right side of Tiferes, and he put him also on the left side of Tiferes. That means Yaakov went piggyback. Means Yaakov did his job, which is to bring down holiness by learning Torah, and besides that, Yaakov Avinu now also took the job of Esav. You see, so Yaakov now took on two different jobs. One was the old job of bringing down holiness, you see, and the second job is that he would now have to go into the field among the non-religious and evil people. He would therefore have to remain righteous, and therefore he would take out all the sparks of holiness that gives the Satan the power. He would then take it all out of the hands of the Satan, and ultimately he would subdue the Satan. So therefore we find Yaakov Avinu taking over the job of Esav, which is remarkable. Now, in order to do that, obviously, Yaakov Avinu had to leave his house. So we now understand why Yaakov Avinu had to leave the house of Yitzchak and go to the house of Lavan. Because there he would be able to remain righteous and take away the tremendous koyach of the Satan by remaining a tremendous tzaddik. And that's what he did. After he took the brachot from Yitzchak, he had to leave to Lavan. Why? Because he had now taken over the job of Esav. You see, it's a remarkable concept. And therefore, he now became the Ish Sodeh, the man of the field, because he took over the job of Esav. So that's what he does. He goes to the house of Lavan, and he has to remain righteous, even though Lavan is a tremendous Russia, you see. And he had to remain there for many, many years, doing that job. Now, what is interesting is this. Every person has what's called a partner, his wife. And both are assigned as a team to a specific mission. That's what a wife is. She's not just a woman to have children. She's part of the mission of the husband to do whatever he has to do in the spiritual realms. Now, therefore, Yaakov, as an Ov, to do his Pashtus Kedusha, to bring down holiness, he has a wife for that job as part of the team. Who is that wife? Rachel. That's really who she was. Rachel was part of Yaakov Avinu, the wife of Yaakov Avinu, that would team up with him to bring down holiness. You see. Now, Esav also obviously has to have a woman, a wife, that would assist him also in destroying the Satan. So who would that be? And the answer to that is Leah. Leah was destined to marry Esav in order to help him destroy the Satan. You see. And that's why it says that Leah had very soft eyes because she cried a great deal. And Rashi brings down, because she knew, they used to say in the house of Lavan, well, Rachel is going to marry Yaakov, and Leah is going to marry Esav. But Esav is a tremendous Rasha, and Leah remained a tremendous Tzaddikus. So she cried terribly, the fact that she was destined to be the wife of Esav. Now, what's interesting about all this is that we now know that Esav failed, he became a Rasha, so his ability to do the tikkun was removed, and it was given over to Yaakov Avinu to be able to do the tikkun of destroying the Satan. If that's the case, then Yaakov needs a wife to help him do that, you see. So therefore, Yaakov married Leah. You see how it works? So Yaakov, since he took over the job of Esav, now had to marry the teammate that was supposed to go to Esav, so he now had to marry Leah. You think about it, it's incredible. And that is why Yaakov married Rachel, because Yaakov still had his original job. So he still needed a wife. In those days, you could marry more than one woman. And each woman will assist the husband to do a specific, agency. So the agency, or the shlichus, of Yaakov to do the hispashtus kedusha would be Rachel. And the woman that would assist Yaakov in taking over the job of Esav would be Leah. You see? That's the way it works. So therefore he married Leah. First he married, we'll see in a minute. But he married Rachel, and obviously he married Leah. And that is why Yaakov had two wives, or at least two wives. That they took the sisters of Rachel and Leah was Bilhah and Zilpah. So he married them also, you see. But the main idea is that Yaakov, who took over the job of Esav, now had to marry the wife of Esav, or rather the woman that would have married Esav, Leah. However, what's interesting now is we find, and now we begin to understand who Rachel was, you see, in the whole concept of the Mabul. Like I said, what happened? Well, obviously Yaakov wanted to marry Rachel, but what happened in the Torah? We find that Lavan switched Rachel for Leah, and he told, and he was going to deceive Yaakov, because Yaakov would work 7 years for Rachel. So Lavan obviously wanted more work from Yaakov, because Yaakov was a tremendous worker. But what's more important is that when Yaakov did a job, it would bring tremendous bracha, blessing, because that's what Yaakov did. That was tremendous tzaddik. So he increased enormously the flocks of Lavan, you see. So therefore, Lavan decided to deceive Yaakov. So what does he do? You see, he gives Leah as the bride to Yaakov. And he's hoping that Yaakov will not realize under the chuppah that it is not Rachel, but it is Leah, obviously. So she has this veil over her head, and Yaakov assumes it's Rachel. But he doesn't know. Instead, who was it really? It was really Leah, you see. But what happens, which is very important. Now remember the job of Rachel and Leah. The job of Rachel is to assist Yaakov in Kedusha, holiness, not connected with evil. And the job of Leah was to have helped Esav, right, do the job of subduing evil, you see, to deal with the Satan, to in some way diminish his ability. And that was the job of Leah, you see. But what was interesting is that Yaakov marries Leah. He thought it was Rachel, which we know. And of course, the next day, or whatever it was, he realized that Lavan deceived him, and he gave him instead Leah, you see. So all of a sudden we find Leah has what? That Leah now became a team with Yaakov of Kedusha, not Satan. And we find that Rachel has now become a woman that was really part of the job of Yaakov to subdue evil. So the question is, how in the world did that happen? Since we know that Rachel originally was to help Yaakov bring Kedusha, and Leah was to help Esav subdue the Satan. But now we find that Leah is in the concept called Hispashtus Kedusha, and not subduing evil. How do we see that? Because Leah had Yehuda, and Yehuda is the forerunner of Mashiach ben David. And Mashiach ben David, right, his job is to bring down Kedusha, holiness into the world. who had Yehuda? It was Leah, not Rachel. And we find that Rachel had Yosef, who was the forerunner of Mashiach ben Yosef. And the job of Yosef was to do what? Was to subdue evil. You see, because that's the whole job of Mashiach ben Yosef. It's to subdue evil, which means he goes against the nations of the world, and in a certain sense, he transforms the world from evil to good, and then Mashiach ben David brings down the rest of the holiness. You see, so that's what we find. That Leah actually became what's called the consort of Yaakov of Kedusha, not a klipa or a satan, you see. And that's what she originally was. And Rachel, which was originally in Kedusha, right? And so Leah had Yehuda, which is the forerunner Mashiach ben David, Kedusha. And then Rachel, she was originally Kedusha, and now we find she has Yosef, Mashiach ben Yosef, the forerunner, and his job is, of course, to fight with the Satan and destroy the Satan. So the question is, how did that happen? How did this switch happen? That is a very good question. Because we now find, like I said, that each woman has now reversed or changed the roles of what they originally were. And the answer to that is very interesting. And the Orach Chaim actually hints at what the answer is. Because when Yaakov married Leah, he thought it was Rachel. So when Yaakov went to be with his wife, he didn't know that it was Leah. He thought it was Rachel. So what he did is that his kavana, because tzaddikim have tremendous kavana when they are with their wives. So when he was with Leah, he thought it was Rachel. So his intent, being together, intimacy with Leah, was to invest her with the agency of Rachel, which is Kedusha. So by doing that, he created a tremendous shefa, tremendous divine force of Kedusha, which means the job of bringing down Kedusha, into the woman that he thought was Rachel, but was really Leah. So it comes out that the role of Leah switched. Originally, she was supposed to be with Esav, right? And as such, she would be involved with Esav in terms of Kedusha, in terms of subduing evil. But Yaakov, being with Leah after the chuppah, he thought it was Rachel. So his intention being with Rachel was that she should help him bring down Kedusha. But the problem is that it wasn't Rachel. It was Leah. So he actually changed the role of Leah into a role of bringing down Kedusha, you see. And therefore Leah winds up having the forerunner Mashiach ben David, which of course is Yehuda. You see? And that's incredible. This is what happened. Now, once Leah has the role of a sort of Mashiach ben David, which means to bring down Kedusha, therefore she now has Yehuda, you see. But once she has that role, then Rachel automatically gets the other role, you see. And that role is what? Is to destroy the Satan, or in some way to diminish evil. So what is remarkable is that these two women, who initially had completely different roles than they used to have, you see. Leah was with Esav and Rachel was with Yaakov, and now the roles were switched because Yaakov Avinu did not realize that the woman he married was Leah, but really it was really Leah, but it was supposed to be Rachel. So his intent was that this woman that he is being with, living with, should help him in Kedusha. So he invested tremendous shefa of Kedusha in Leah, thinking it was Rachel. You see how it came about? So therefore, what happens now is that Leah now has the job, so to speak, of helping Yaakov bring it down Kedusha, and Rachel, that's Leah, and Rachel has the job of subduing the Satan to diminish that, you see. And that is a very important switch that happened, you see. Now, the concept of Rachel has now changed, where Rachel is now involved in subduing and diminishing and destroying the Satan. And that is why we now find Rachel, you see, that Rachel is the one that redeems or gets the Jews out of the Klippa. You see, because the Klippa is the Satan. So the one who can somehow redeem the Jews, right, from the Satan is Rachel, not Leah, because she now has the job that Leah originally had to be the consort of Esav. She now has the job of to be the consort of Esav. She now has the previous job of Leah to fight the Satan. And therefore she gives birth, like I said, to Yosef HaTzadik. And Yosef HaTzadik, of course, is involved with the ability to go into the Klippa, just like Yosef went into Egypt and subdued Egypt. So that power comes from Rachel, you see. So therefore, Rachel now has assumed a new role, that she is the one who deals with the Satan. She deals with the Klippa, and Rachel is able to help the Jews overcome the Klippa, which really, as far as we're concerned, is really the Geula itself, is the redemption. You see. Now, what is important, I'll mention this, is that in order for Yaakov to be fooled by Lavan, right, Yaakov knew that Lavan would switch. Yaakov was a very, very bright person. And he knew Lavan was a fraud, that Lavan would switch Leah, Rachel for Leah. So what he did is he told Leah a secret password. I should say he told Rachel a secret password. And that underneath the chuppah, what Yaakov would do is ask his bride, who he thinks is Rachel, for the password. Now, Lavan doesn't know what that is. So therefore what would happen is that Leah, who obviously would not know the password, Yaakov would immediately find out that the whole thing is a fraud. But Rachel had Rachmanis on Leah, which is incredible. She felt sorry for Leah, because if Rachel would marry Yaakov, then Leah would be stuck. Who would she marry? Because Esav became a Russia. So in effect, who would she marry? So what she did is unheard of. She told the password that Yaakov told her in order to make sure that Lavan doesn't deceive Yaakov. Rachel actually told the password to Leah, you see. So that in many ways she was part of the plot, the conspiracy, to fool Yaakov. And now she knew eventually that even though Yaakov would marry Leah, she knew that she would also, well actually, that itself is a very good question, you know. But she felt terribly sorry for Leah, and therefore she told Leah the password. Now the amazing thing is that Rachel took a terrible chance, because it would have been possible, imagine if Yaakov would find out, which he eventually did, that he married Leah instead of Rachel. But then, of course, the question is, how did this woman Leah know the password? And of course, he would realize that Rachel told Leah the password. So there was a great possibility that Yaakov would reject Rachel and say, I'm not going to marry you. I don't trust you. If this is what you did to me, I am not going to marry you. And what that would have meant is that Rachel would have been the spinster. But more important, she would never have been the aim. She would never have been the mother and part of the Jewish people. Because Yaakov would not marry her. She would have no shvatim. She would not be part of the Jewish people, you see. So what Rachel was doing was taking a terrible chance, you see, that she would not be part of the Jewish people. And as a result of that, that's it. She's a spinster. But Rachel didn't care, and she told Leah the password anyway. What that did is it created a very interesting thing. Since Leah, or I should say since Rachel, was incredibly righteous, what she did is she sacrificed herself, you see, in order to help her sister, and not be jealous that her sister would marry Yaakov. So she put herself in a position of tremendous sacrifice, you see. And because of that, that's a very important idea. Since she allowed herself to sacrifice herself for the sake of midah, the midah of not being jealous by Leah marrying Yaakov, which is was supposed to be her husband. So she exhibited the ability to suffer and to sacrifice herself for the sake of what is right. And that is why Rachel is the one who redeems the Jewish people, you see, because she sacrificed herself. So God said, since you sacrifice yourself, therefore the redemption of the Jewish people will be dependent on you and not Leah. Because you obviously have the capacity to sacrifice yourself for the Jewish people, for your children. And therefore Rachel becomes the mother of the Jewish people because of that incredible midah of being able to sacrifice herself, and suffer for the sake of the Jewish people, for the sake of her children. And that is why she is the mother of Israel and not Leah. That's why she's considered. Because a mother gives herself up for her children. You see. And that is why when the Jews were exiled to Babylon, they passed her grave in Beis Lechem, and that's why she died there. So the Jews should pass her gravesite on the way to Babylon, and they prayed at her gravesite. And it says in the Medrash that everybody was trying to save the Jewish people. They were trying to, in some way, offer some type of a merit, but God rejected all their claims. So the Medrash says that Rachel came in front of the heavenly tribunal, and she was successful. Why? Because everybody was trying to save the Jewish people based on dinam, justice. But God said, nope, the decree is that the Jews have to suffer exile, you see, for all time until the Mashiach. That's the decree, you see. However, so God did not listen to any of the defenses of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, right, Moshe, Aaron, Shlomo, and Shmuel, and so on. But when Rachel stood in front of the heavenly tribunal, her argument won. Why? Because Rachel said, look, the Jews worship idols. That is true. But why should you be jealous of that? I was not jealous with my sister. I willingly gave my sister the password that she could marry Yaakov Avinu. You see? And I was not jealous. So I went lefnim mishur sadin. I went beyond the measure of justice. I didn't have to do this. Of course not. So I demonstrated what's called lefnim mishur adin, beyond the measure of justice. So therefore, in that merit, please go beyond the measure of justice and bring the Jews back. You see? So God said, you're right, because you exhibited beyond the measure of justice, lifnei mishurat hadin, and you willingly gave yourself, you sacrificed yourself so that your sister Leah should not be terribly embarrassed and be a spinster. Therefore, in that merit, since you sacrificed yourself, I will bring back the Jews, not at the time of the Mashiach, but after 70 years, you see. And therefore, Rachel Imeinu has become the mother of the Jewish people, because she exhibited what a mother does, to give her life or happiness for the sake of a child, you see. And therefore, Rachel Imeinu, people go to Rachel Imeinu to pray because she is considered the mother of Israel. And that's why God says, wipe away your tears, you see, because in your merit, Jews will come back. So that's who Rachel really is. We now understand that she took over the role of Leah because of the whole incident of Leah marrying Yaakov. And because of that, she has the power to redeem the Jewish people from the klipa because of what she did. And therefore she gave birth to Yosef HaTzadik, who obviously went to Egypt and suffered at the hands of the Sultan, the klipa. And that's the power of the Bnei Rachel. That is the power of Rachel and her children to, in some way, subdue the Satan, the Sultan, you see. And that is a secret of why Rachel Imeinu's yahrtzeit is a yahrtzeit, Yud Aleph Cheshvan, why it is such an important yahrtzeit. Because at that yahrtzeit, right, when she died in Beis Lechem, she has the power to redeem the Jewish people. And in the end of time, that's what's going to happen. She has that power. And I pointed out last week, right, that Yud Aleph Cheshvan was October 22nd, 1942, which was the turnaround of World War II, which is the klipa, Amalek, Germany. So she actually had the power to turn around the entire World War II, where the Jews, where the war, turned around, and that was the beginning of the end of Germany. And it was Rachel Imeinu, you see. And I mentioned also that October 18th, 1946, was the beginning of the Nuremberg trials. And not only that, the collapse of the Soviet Union, I mentioned, also happened on November 9th, which was Yud Aleph Cheshvan. See, this is all the klipa that collapsed, all happened on the yahrtzeit of Rachel Imeinu. It was the power of Rachel, you see. So we now understand, who Rachel is, originally what her origin is between Yaakov and Esau, and the power that she has to save the Jewish people, you see. And let's hope, the same thing, that on today, which is the Mabul, which was supposed to happen on Yud Aleph Cheshvan, that this also will also help the Jews overturn the klipa of the radical left and allow America, Trump, to, in many ways, help the Jewish people in their redemption. Any questions?
Very interesting.
What was that?
It's very interesting.
Isn't it?
So, who's the Rachel Imeinu now?
Who is it now? Well, Rachel Imeinu is in heaven, Her neshama is able to do that.
Uh-huh.
Who's
Gilgul?
What?
Who's her Gilgul?
That is unknown.
Anna and her 7 sons, she cried for her children. No.
Yes. So she's the one who cries for her children. Exactly. But she has that power. So when you go to the kever of Rachel Imeinu, I don't know if they're letting people in. I think it was closed on Yud Aleph Cheshvan because of COVID, So one can affect a tremendous Yeshua from Rachel, because that's her power. Her power is to help anybody caught in the kitrugim, the prosecutions of the Sultan. That is her power, you see.
How long do you think it's going to last until they announce or that Trump won? Like, how long do you think this is going to go on?
Well, it's a whole court case. It's hard to know. It's certainly going to be many. It's going to be many days, that's for sure, because it's got to go all the way up to the Supreme Court. They really have to analyze all the election laws, because a lot of the laws are tremendously arbitrary, election laws, you see. And this whole thing is a fiasco. It's incredible how they can allow mail-in ballots, because the whole thing is a fiasco. It's really what it is, you know.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Could it possibly be 40 days of rain, which is like the Mabul started, so 40 days until we announce the presidency? Could that be possibly midah keneged midah?
Maybe. Could be.
And Rabbi,
and then Hanukkah.
Yeah.
So you were saying like a few weeks ago, Keshvan is when the process starts, and the next month is when he announces himself. Correct?
Yeah. Could be. Yeah.
So that would be Hanukkah. That would be around Hanukkah time, 40 days after.
Well, I know that the when is December 14th? Is that Hanukkah?
Yes, it is.
Wait, I'll tell you in a minute. Look at a calendar.
14th is
I know the electoral. I know the electoral college.
December 10th
wow,
is
that's
the first night of Hanukkah. The 14th is Hanukkah.
Monday, that's Hanukkah. I know the electoral college gets together on December 14th, which is Hanukkah. Yeah, maybe that would be interesting.
The 40 days would be December 12th.
Yeah, which is December 12th.
Yeah. It's because Friday night
so
Hanukkah, and then it starts Thursday night.
It's the Shabbat of Hanukkah.
It's Erev Hanukkah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other,
could be.
So it's a good possibility. Then
it's a possibility. I certainly hope it doesn't take 40 days. I think the country will go crazy.
So you gave it was Joe Lieberman, and his election got held up 40 days, and you said it was like the Beit Din Shalmala. Maybe now up in Zion they're prosecuting and advocating for Am Yisrael.
Yes, that's right.
Days again.
Yes, that's right, yeah. There's no question that in heaven there's a tremendous court trial happening up there now. Oh, yeah, sure. What to do with Trump? Because the Satan is up there screaming, trying to say that, no, that the Jews don't deserve this because there's a lot of sins of the Jews and so on. So there's no question that there's a tremendous court case in heaven, what to do with America, what to do with the Tov Shebei Yisov. No question about that. And we are witnessing that today.
Rabbi, I also saw that in Israel last night there was a red moon. Is that a significance of anything?
There was a red moon. Yes, red moon because it was an eclipse of the moon, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, so that's not a good sign for the Jewish people.
Say that again. Repeat. What did you say?
Well, a red moon is not a good sign for the Jewish people. Any eclipse of the moon is not a good sign.
Yeah, we just had a blue moon on Saturday night.
What's a blue moon?
There was a blue moon on Saturday night in America. The night of Halloween. Yes.
I don't know. I never saw a blue moon.
Today in Israel, Rabbi, being that it was the day of the Mabul, there were 2 rainbows all over Israel. 2 huge rainbows.
There was?
Yeah.
That's interesting because there's a medrash, by the way, that says that before the Mashiach comes, right, it says that there will be a spectacular rainbow.
I could send you a picture of it. My friend took it in Israel.
Wow, really? I heard there was a tremendous lightning storms in Israel.
there's huge rainstorms, like major rain.
So that's a bracha, rain.
Yes, rain is a tremendous bracha for Israel. Yes. So maybe that's a turnaround. You know.
So if Rachel took over Leah's job, which was the mate of Esav, if Donald Trump is a tov of Esav, maybe, God willing, she's doing her job in Shamayim now because that's technically a part of her job as his mate.
Yes.
Supposedly.
Yes, that would be true. You know, well, Donald Trump, because he's the Tov Shebe'esav, certainly would be within the camp of Rachel. Definitely. He would be part of that concept, you see. So that could be happening, yes. Definitely. You see.
I heard someone say that they said Ivanka was a Gilgul of Ruth. Did you ever hear that?
No, I never heard that. I don't think so. But I thought, I once had a thought that maybe Ivanka is a Gilgul of Esther.
That's what I think.
Oh, wow.
Not Rus. I once had that thought.
Wow. Yeah, because she does help redeem through her husband. She brings...
Exactly. Yeah. That's right, you know. So you never know. You know, maybe that's really what's going on. You know.
Rabbi, imagine if Hashem makes a miracle and Joe Biden dies before they tally the election. Then what happens?
No, that's not good. Well, if he dies before the election.
Then Kamala will be president.
Exactly.
That would be horrible.
Of course. That's worse than Biden.
That's not how it works.
President Yanni.
If Joe Biden dies, it's not how it works.
How does it work?
It never happened in history. It would be unprecedented, and they would have to go to Supreme Court to decide. There's no law right now what happens if he dies. But it doesn't go to Kamala.
Does not go to Kamala. He's not president yet. He can't go to Kamala.
No, he wouldn't. He would have to be. The question is, what happens if he was nominated and then he died? So that would be an interesting question. You know, because the VP usually would take over. But what happens if it's before the inauguration? He's not sworn in. That would be an interesting question.
Court.
They go for the president only applies.
Then it goes to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that makes sense. That would make a lot of sense. Yeah, you know, it's interesting.
That would be a miracle. Let him kick the bucket tonight.
Yeah, but it's much better if Biden loses and he watches himself lose because he's a very evil person.
Yeah,
he took bribes for 30 years.
And he got up yesterday before they counted the thing. Oh, we're very confident I'm going to win. I'm going to bed now. Who does that?
So there was a joke. Breaking news, Joe Biden announces that Trump can keep the White House.
I'll keep the basement.
Biden wants the basement.
It's very bad, Rabbi. I don't know what's going to be. Wow.
Well,
Israel?
The what?
What do you, Rabbi? So right now, all we should be doing is just sitting back and watching. We shouldn't attach to the fear that's going on around us.
Huh.
No, because it's all in the hands of God.
Correct.
Something as momentous as what will happen to America is not an accident. All of this is in the hands of God. So the question is this: are we watching the window close more, which I mentioned is what happens? So obviously when the window closes more, there's more darkness. Is that what we're watching? Is that there has to be more darkness to the Jewish people? Or are we watching the end of the window closing and it's going to spring, or the gate will spring open when Trump is elected president? That is the question that we have to ask. Are we in for another ride of darkness or no? It looks like it's about to close. and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Trump will win. It's the same thing that happened in 2016, where out of nowhere he won, and everybody was shocked, you see. So it could very well happen again, same thing. So you have to sit back and watch what exactly does it mean, you see? Is it a further closing of the window, or this is something that will precede the gates opening wide open, and that then is the beginning of the Messianic era, you see?
You know what I was thinking, Rabbi? I was thinking that, like, this waiting period that we're in is, like, filled with fear and anxiety, but that is clearing out, is, like, purifying us so that when Trump does get reelected, as we are more progressed with the tikkun, that the Mashiach can come in, step in, and do its job.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility.
Like when we had Pacham Mavet, that helped. So, like, we don't have a Mavet right now, but we have a lot of, we're all just so uncertain.
Yeah, but you should know one thing. It's not just America. The whole world is collapsing. What's going on in Europe is incredible. You know, they just locked down the whole England for 4 weeks. And in Rome and France, the COVID is rising all over the world, you see. So we're watching a tremendous period of pain, because that's really what COVID does. Even if it doesn't kill, it brings an enormous amount of suffering. And all of this ultimately is an atonement, it's a kapara. That's really what you're watching. The question is, what is the end of this? Like I say, will it get much worse and continue? Because evil has not fulfilled yet its ability to do evil. Because even doing evil has a measurement, and then God destroys it. Or are we watching right before the opening of the gate? That is the question. And will soon be answered in terms of what's going to happen with Trump and the Supreme Court, you know?
Rabbi, do you think that there's going to be major civil wars going to happen?
Well, a civil war in the sense that there could be. Somebody told me that there were 17 million guns that were sold in this year.
Yeah, and yesterday also there was a huge spike in ammunition sales.
Yeah. Well, that tells you that people are arming themselves, which tells you that people are ready for a rebellion, which is very bad news. And that tells you the one who's ready, I'm sure, is the right, not the left, because they will not allow America to go into to become a socialist, communist country. And there are many people that are not going to allow that. So you may have states, Republican states, that want to secede from the Union. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But that means that because people realize that there will be a tremendous movement by Biden to defund the police, which means a tremendous rise in crime, you see. And that's what we're seeing. That's what's going to happen with Biden, you see. So everybody is now arming themselves. That is a very dangerous situation. Very dangerous. Yeah, it's amazing.
Protesting and beating Manhattan.
What was that?
In Manhattan, they're already protesting and burning down and rioting in the city now as we speak.
Where, in Manhattan? They're doing that?
And also, what do you think about Vienna with the guy shooting people in front of the shul? Thank God the shul was closed, but they were murdering people. Yes.
Do they know why?
Yesterday, there was an Islamic crazy guy went to the shul to start shooting, but the shul was closed. The security guard shot back, and then he went to the next door. It was a restaurant. It wasn't kosher, and he murdered people and kept going about and killing more people and injuring them. The whole world is going crazy.
Wow. Yeah. It's amazing.
And it just happened that the Chabad, because of COVID the night before, decided, because they were not busy, that they were going to close early that night. So luckily that they were closed, because otherwise they would have gotten killed that night.
Where, in Vienna?
In Vienna.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, look, it's a dangerous world. Well, listen, hopefully the Gzera will end, and God will say enough is enough.
Amen.
And begin the Geula. Begin the redemption. You know? Listen, you have to remember that same thing happened in Egypt. Right? They were surrounded by the Egyptian army, and they all thought they were finished. You know? And all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, the sea split, and they went through, and the Egyptians were killed. So you never know. This could be the Keheraphayan, that all of a sudden it looks like everything is about to end, and in the blink of an eye, all of a sudden the Yeshua comes. Who knows if that's what's happening? You see. Okay, great. Now, are we back? What was that? Are we back on Monday?
Yes.
We'll go back to Monday?
Yeah, we'll go back to Monday. It's good.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Thank you,
Very
Rabbi.
nice. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good night.
Have a good night, and let's just, be aware. You understand the underpinnings in Hashkafa of what's happening, so now you can be aware of what's going on.
We do in the meantime.
In the meantime, do mitzvahs.
Any special prayers you recommend?
You could say Tilim, sure.
What, like
Yeah.
Tikkun HaKlali?
What was that?
The Tikkun HaKlali?
Yeah, that's always good to say. The 10 chapters, the 10 chapters of Tilim by Reb Nachman. That's always very good.
Every day.
Yeah, that's very good to say.
So, is there any mitzvah in particular that you think would help?
Yeah, I always recommend the mitzvah of Shmirat HaLashon, to stop the Satan's Kitrugim. Yes, I always recommend that.